napalitan ba yun ng battery? Hmm. Sige, go. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our last topic for this webinar for bookkeepers. Our discussion for this afternoon is the mother of revenue regulations for the bookkeeping. No? Ito yung VIDAS 1. And sabi ko nga sa inyo, even if some of the provisions of these regulations were amended, but most of the provisions are still in force. Okay? So let's continue. And yung concern po ninyo for the admin, you just chat in the chat box because we have staff or personnel who will attend to your needs. Yung mga humahabol na hindi pa karoon ng slides or ng mga materials presentation natin, mag-chat po kayo para mapadalan kayo together with your email address. No? And then, yung inyong e-certificate, right after, no, matatapos tayo ng 4 o'clock, right after that, papadala na po namin yung inyong mga e-certificate. No? So, e-certificate lang po yung ipapadala natin dito. Okay? So, let's continue with our discussions. No, for this revenue regulations number VIDAS 1 is the oldest bookkeeping regulations that we have in the Philippines. And this was crafted in 1947. No? Wala pa tayo sa mundo. Nandito na itong VIDAS 1. But still in force. And this revenue regulations, VIDAS 1 is copied from that of the United States. So, like any other law, we start with the definition of terms. So, we start with persons. Pag sinabing persons in this regulations, that includes persons and partnership, association companies, corporations, no matter how created. So, ang ibig sabihin lahat niyan, persons. No? Books of accounts are journal, ledger, subsidiaries, or their equivalents. Yung sinasabing equivalents dito can be other kind of books of accounts. Pwede siyang yung parang record book wherein you record information particular or peculiar to your business. Pwede rin yun. Journal is the book of original entry. Kaya nga, when we record our business and transactions, we start with a journal. But of course, ang reminder ko sa inyo, do not record in the journal or in the book of original entry without the supporting documents. Kasi sayang lang, no? During the audit, it will be disallowed if you record information without supporting documents. And what are the supporting documents? Yun yung sinasabi natin na for purchases of goods, ang supporting documents ninyo is sales invoice, purchases of services, official receipts. For your salaries and wages, of course, the supporting documents are the payroll. So, journal is the book of original entry. Diyan lahat naka-record yung mga happenings or the transactions affecting the business. No? At ano ang process or recording? Consecutive, day by day as they occur. So, hindi pwede yung hindi sunod-sunod sa journal. Dapat day by day as they occur. Yun ang sequence of the recording. And then we have the ledger. It is the book of final entry. Why book of final entry? Because coming from the journal, after posting in the journal, yung ledger, yun ang magsasummarize ng debit and credit, bawat account. And dyan mo ma-determine how much is the balance of the account after a certain period. So ledger is the book of final entry. Saan pinopost yung mga accounts. Ito yung T accounts which we discussed kahapon. Or the items of all transactions entered in the journal or its equivalent. And then we have our simplified set of bookkeeping records, although ngayon wala na to. Why? Because when we have our bookkeeping records ngayon, classified na siya if VAT or non-VAT, no? For non-VAT, which is siguro yun yung equivalent ng simplified bookkeeping records ngayon, we have at least 4 books, no? And what are the 4 books? Yung journal, ledger, and then we have the cash receipts and cash disbursement. Yun na yung pinaka-simplified natin ngayon. The books of accounts and audit by independent certified public accountant. Under the train law, itong books of accounts and audit by independent certified public accountant, there is an increased threshold. No? If your account is more than 3 million, your total sales for the year is more than 3 million, you are required by the train law to have your books of accounts audited by a certified public accountants. Pero yung below, pwede na yung financial statement ninyo, books, certified na lang by the owner. No? Hindi na kailangan ng CPA. But if you are a corporation, iba naman yun. No? Kahit 3 million below ang sales nyo for the year, ang is still requires audit ng independent CPA. No? So magkakaiba yan. And remember, if you are a corporation, you are not only filing compliance for BIR purposes, but you are also filing for SEC purposes. And sometimes the requirements of the BIR and the SEC are different, no? Like also the CDA or Cooperative Development Authority. Okay. So under the train law, 3 million shall have their books of accounts, yung sales may output siya na 3 million, shall have their books of accounts audited and examined by a certified public accountant. And how are you going to choose a certified public accountant that will audit your books of accounts? Certified public accountant should have yung may certificate from the BOA na qualified siya to audit. Ano yung BOA certificate? The Board of Accountancy certificate. No? And see to it na hindi siya nag-expire. Why? Because that BOA certificate will expire in 3 years. And every year, there are requirements set by the PRC or the Philippine Regulatory Commission na yung bawat practicing professionals should undergo trainings. No? May mga units required for them to complete bago magkaroon ng renewal. So those CPAs na expired na yung kanilang mga BOA, hindi na sila pwede mag-audit. No? Okay. So, ito naman yung sa BOA regulations pagdating na sa certified public accountants. Ano naman to requirements na to? In order to maintain the independence of the certified public accountant. No? No certified public accountant shall certify to the financial statement. Ito hindi to binago of any enterprise which during the period covered by the report is owned or controlled by him or his spouse. Meaning related sa kanya. In which he or his spouse is a partner, stockholder, promoter, voting trustee, transfer agent, and registrar. So, ibig sabihin, may connection sila doon sa business, hindi ka pwedeng mag-certify. Officer, director, salaried employee, hindi pwedeng certify mo yung inyong employer. The same prohibition applies to a firm engaged in the practice of accountants in the Philippines if any of the partners or associates thereof be any of the above in the enterprise. So, yung related parties, hindi pwedeng sila din yung mag-audit sa sarili nila. No? Ito pa, relatives of the certified public accountant. So, kung relatives ka, kamag-anak mo, yung may-ari ng business, hindi rin pwedeng certify ng CPA. Ano yun? If you're a CPA, you cannot audit the financial statement of your parents, grandparents, no? So, parent, grandparents, magulang, tapos lolo, lola, no? Great-grandparents, ano yun? Lola ng parents mo, great-grandparents. Uncle or aunts and their spouses, pati mga tiyuhin. Brothers and sisters, magkapatid, hindi pwede. Why? Because related. Yung independence ma-violate, no? Nephews or nieces, mga pamangkin. Children and their spouses, lalo na, yung mga anak mo, hindi pwedeng ikaw mag-audit if you're a CPA. Grandchildren and their spouses, pati apo mo, saka yung mga spouses nila, hindi mo rin pwedeng i-audit. Great-grandchildren and their spouses, ito yung mga apo sa tuhod. No? Sana makita ko pa yung mga apo ko sa tuhod. Great-grandchildren and their spouses. And then parents-in-law. O, yung mga biyenan, hindi mo rin pwede yun. Why? Because they are what we call as relative by consanguine. Relative by consanguinity, ito yung by blood. Relative by affinity, ito yung mga in-laws. No? By affinity, nag-connect lang kayo because of the law na nag-asawa yung mga kamag-anak nyo. So, nagiging relative kayo by affinity. Connection lang. No? So, parents-in-law, hindi rin pwedeng i-audit mo if you are a CPA. Grandparents-in-law, no? Pati yung parents ng biyenan mo, hindi rin pwede. Uncle or aunt-in-law, mga, mga bayaw, hipag. Brothers or sisters-in-law, ito yung bayaw at saka hipag. Ito yung mga tiyuhin-in-laws. Pala yung nephews and nieces-in-law, so hindi rin pwedeng i-audit. Okay? So, anong purpose? Bakit hindi pwedeng i-audit yung magkamag-anak? Because of the independence requirements in audit. Persons required to keep books of accounts. So, we're still discussing the revenue regulations with us one. Sino daw yung persons required to keep books of accounts? Okay. So, we have the persons who are required by law to pay internal revenue taxes. Why? What is the purpose? According to what we have learned yesterday, ano yung purpose? Why is it that every persons doing business are required to keep their books of accounts? Because the government will ascertain at any time of the year the correct taxes that should be paid by the taxpayer. Kaya sila nire-require to keep books of accounts. And then, whose gross quarterly sales, earnings, receipts, or output, whether subject to percentage tax or not, exceed 5,000 pesos, are required to keep books of accounts in accordance with the standard accounting system. Alam nyo dati, nakipag-argue ako dito because I'm so particular with these non-stock non-profit organizations, and there was a time that I recommend to the commissioner to audit all these non-stock non-profit. No? And they have a ruling na yung non-stock non-profit corporations daw, because they are exempt from the payment of taxes, hindi na kailangan ng books of accounts. Nakakuha sila ng ruling, no? Pero para sa akin, that should be revoked. And yes, talagang it was revoked. Kaya nga, so controversial ako noon when I was concurrent head of the registration because hindi ko talaga sila pinayagan. And I did not, I recommend to the commissioner na i-revoke yung ruling na yun. No? Kaya nga, sabi nila, bakit galit ka sa NGO? Sabi ko, hindi naman, but should not be. Why? Kasi hindi exempt ang NGOs. No? They are only exempt on their activities na para doon sa activities nila, only for income tax purposes. But all other taxes, they are subject. No? Kaya yung notion na, ay, exempt yan sa tax. Remember, there are so many kind of taxes, and the exemption carried by the NGO is only one income tax lang. No? So, dapat pa siya magbayad ng withholding tax kasi meron siya mga employees. No? Those stamps, dapat din siya magbayad ng those stamps if they have documents. Marami pa. So, yung exemption niya sa income tax does not carry with it exemptions in other taxes. That's why hindi ako pumayag. No? Kaya ang daming nagbago. Kaya controversial ako noon. But okay lang. It's okay for me. Ang daming nagagalit. Sabi ko, hindi naman ako I'm not pleasing anyone. No? Kaya sabi ko, hindi naman sabi nga nila, napaka-sarcastic kong tao. Hindi naman ako concerned na i-please ko Ang gusto ko lang, kung ano yung nandyan, nasa batas, sundin lang. Wala nang iba. Wala naman akong purpose. Kaya yung iba, mabait. Ang dami-dami regalo pagdating ng December. Ako walang nagre-regalo sa akin. Bakit? Sungit. Okay lang sa akin. Hindi ko man kailangan regalo. Why? Isang item lang naman, okay na sa'yo. So, bakit mapakailangan ng marami? Hindi naman ako politician. O I'm not planning to run for a public office. Sabi ko, hindi ko kailan mamulitika. Basta kung ano lang yung tama, yun ang tama. No? So, the said books of account shall consist of journal and the ledger and their equivalents. Ano ang information na kailangan? Necessary information for the determination of internal revenue taxes on their businesses. No? And remember, NGOs, income tax lang siya, exempt, no? So, yung mga liabilities niya on withholding tax, how can you ascertain that? Kaya nga, pinarevoke po talaga yung ruling na yun. Vendors inside public market required to keep books of accounts. Why? Ni-specify niya dito yung vendors. Because there are vendors, especially yung sa wet market, na exempted sila sa payment ng business tax. But exemption in the payment of the business tax does not carry with it exemption in the income tax. Kaya, dapat, nagbabayad pa rin sila ng income tax. So, in order to ascertain their tax liabilities, they should keep books of accounts. Kaya para sa akin, napaka-importante to any business owner ang books of accounts. Pag wala kang ganyan, as if nag-i-invite ka ng problems. No? Because you will be having problems later on kung ma-audit ka na. Vendors inside public market liable to keep books. No? So public market vendors selling meat, poultry, fish. So ito yung mga gulay, karne, isda, fruits, vegetables, and other food products, exempt sila sa business tax but required to keep books of accounts because they are subject to income and additional residence taxes. Alam nyo, itong mga sellers ng meat, poultry, mga milyonaryo yan. Lalaki ng bahay, may mga apartment yan. Why? Kasi laki ng kita nila dyan. No? And everyday pa. So, exempt sila sa business tax. Ano ba ang business tax? Value-added tax and also percentage taxes. But for income tax purposes, they're subject. Okay, so gross income in relation to the use of books of accounts. Ngayon, wala na to. Wala na tong provisions na to. Why? Because the moment you are registered, you are required to keep books of accounts. Wala na tong gross income requirement. Books of accounts to be kept by brands or establishments. Ang tanong, if you are a branch, required ba that you have to keep books of accounts? Yes, of course. Why? Even if your sales will be consolidated with your head office, but yung branch should maintain books of accounts, especially meron silang sales or meron silang transactions. Kasi imposible naman na nag-create ng branch. Sabi ng iba, ma'am, branch lang naman yan, pang ganito, ganito lang yan. Imposible na mag-create ka ng branch without any operations. Ano yun? You are wasting your effort and your resources. Hindi ganon. So, ibig sabihin, put up ka ng branch, there should be an operation in that branch. So ano ang requirement? You should keep books of accounts also in that branch. Unang-una na for purposes of tax mapping. Pag nag-tax mapping yan, so what are you going to present? So you have to keep your record, all records of the branch. That is requirement, no? Kahit for management purposes, requirement talaga yan that your branch should maintain its own records. Although the filing of the taxes is consolidated with the head office. And isa pa, because I have also my other YouTube channel, no? Ito yung basic transfer pricing. And transfer pricing has also its own requirements when it comes to related party transactions. When it comes to businesses with related party transactions, meron sila sariling requirements at attachment din also for the financial statement and the income tax return. And one of the requirements that may be required during the transfer pricing audit can be your segmented financial statement. So what will happen if you don't maintain information or records in your branch, paano ka makapag-prepare ng segmented financial statements mo? So it's very, very important that you maintain also records in your branch. No? Sinasabi dito, the branch need not keep two set of books of accounts. No? Kasi pwede na sa branch yung sales book. For the expenses, pwede nang consolidate with the head office. No? Okay. Accrual and cash basis in keeping books of accounts. Bakit accrual and cash basis ito? Same with our debit and credit explanation kahapon. Ano yung accrual and cash basis? Sometimes the accrual and the cash basis, dito nagkakaroon tayo ng mga adjustments, no? But mind you, for your information, accrual is the accounting basis na accepted ng BIR, ang cash basis hindi. No? Bakit? Ano ba yung pagkakaiba ng cash basis and the accrual? For the cash basis, only sales and expenses paid in cash are recognized. Yung mga payable, hindi nire-recognize ng cash basis. Ang accrual naman, recognize the transactions as it incurred, no? But not yet paid. Imbawa, yung salaries mo for this month, hindi mo nabayaran, kino-consider na yan ang accrual, kahit payable pa siya. No? Nire-record na niya yan. Payroll, no, as an expense, salaries and wages, credit, accrued salaries or salaries payable. No? Pero sa cash basis, hindi niya yan recognize yan. That's why, hindi pinapayagan ng BIR ang cash basis of accounting para sa taxpayer, only the accrual basis. Journal ledgers and their equivalents, ito yung their equivalents, ito yung maraming sakop, no? Kasi ano ba yung equivalents sa journals and ledgers? No? So yung journal may consist only of one book. Yun yung mga samples natin sa manual, no? Manual books of accounts. This is the general journal. Pero meron din yung purchase book, sales book, no? Cash book, and such other books as the taxpayer may find convenient for his business. Especially kung malaki yung business mo, then mahirapan ka if you only maintain a general journal. Ano itong sales book, purchase book? These are subsidiary or special journal. Journal din sila. Book of original entry din sila. Pwedeng gamitin, no, as the need of your business kailangan. So journal, to comply with the provisions, must contain all the transactions affecting the business. Every entry in the general journal shall carry a brief but complete explanation of the nature of the business transaction and be supported by proper vouchers. Hindi lang vouchers, pati receipts. No? Ano ang hahanapin ng examiner during the audit? The journal. No? Why? Because if there are some accounts in your financial statements na hindi maintindihan ng examiner, she will always go to your journal. Why? Because your journal is your book of original entry and your records contains brief but complete explanation of the nature of the business transactions, no? And the supporting documents. Kasi pagtingin pa lang, questionable tong account na to. Kasi very material. Malaki masyado yung sales. No? So, titingnan ngayon ng examiner yan. O kaya masyado malaki yung expenses. Titingnan ngayon ng examiner yan. So, doon pa lang sa journal, pinost mo siya doon. Wala kang supporting documents, walang resibo. So, ano gagawin ngayon ng examiner? Outright disallowed yan. No? As if wala kang ganyang transactions. So, what's the effect in your financial statement if it is an expense? Lalaki ngayon ang income mo. Why? Because your sales is 1 million. Tinanggalan ka ng expense na 300,000. Ang effect niyan, babayaran mo ng tax, yung 300,000, depending on the rate of tax that you are going to pay. If you are a corporation, ngayon, 20 to 25%. So that's a lot of money. Subsidiary journals are used the same, maybe either bound or loose leaf. Pwede yung subsidiary journal. And in fact, ngayon, if you are a VAT registered taxpayer, it is mandatory for you to maintain subsidiary books of accounts. This is the subsidiary sales book and subsidiary purchase book. And what is the purpose for that? The purpose is for you to have a reference or records of the output and input that you are going to use when you file your monthly and quarterly VAT returns. So the ledger, itong ledger, ito na yung T-accounts natin na, ito na yung may debit, credit na side, no? Ito yung T-accounts natin. At saka ang posting dito is per account. So the ledger may consist of one book or also the general ledger. The equivalence may consist of several ledgers, just like customer's ledger, pwedeng creditor's ledger, stock ledger, or other books. So pwede din yan. Provided if you are maintaining a manual books of accounts, ito yung mga sinasabi kong books, dalhin nyo muna sa BR and then patatakan before you can use it. No? Pero yung mga personal nyo lang na records, hindi na kailangan tatakan ng BR. But don't confuse yung mga personal records nyo with that of the BIR kasi official yung sa BIR. All entries in the journal must be posted to the ledger. Ano ang requirement? Not later than 7 days from the date of the transaction. Ito yung requirements. Lahat daw ng posted in the journal must be posted to the general ledger 7 days. So in 1 week. If you are a computerized books of accounts, walang problema because the system will automatically post your journal to the ledger. So 7 days from the date of the transaction and shall be classified in the ledger as to show the assets, liabilities, capital, operating accounts from which a balance sheet, ito na ang end product na recording natin, the balance sheet, profit and loss statement. Profit and loss statement is the income statement, no? Covering the operation of the business. Ano yun? Because from those statements, you can now, you have the information now of how the corporation or the entity do its business or thrive in its business. Kasi yun na yung result ng operation. Makikita mo na. No entry shall be made in the ledger or its equivalents unless said entry originates from the journal or its equivalents. Ito na yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na kaya ko na master itong B-1 because I was invited to become an expert witness, no, dun sa dispute about issuance of receipts. Na yung kanilang proof na nagbayad sila is their entry in the ledger. So ito yung pinresent ko sa court. No entry shall be made in the ledger or its equivalents unless said entry originates from the journal or its equivalents. So, hindi na tayo sa korte, doon na tayo sa audit with the examiner. No? So, during the audit of the examiner, meron kang questionable na account. Wala sa journal mo. Sa ledger lang. So, ano gagawin ng examiner? Based on this provision, no entry shall be made in the ledger or its equivalents unless said entry originates from the journal or its equivalents. So, anong gagawin ng examiner outright? Allow. No? So, kung expenses yan, kawawa ka because that whole amount of the expenses will be added back to your income and you will be paying a deficiency income tax. The general ledger shall be in bound form where subsidiary ledgers are used. Sa manual, walang problema kasi bound talaga yan. Ang problema mo sa loose leaf. Because in the loose leaf, i-print mo yan sa Excel or sa computer or sa typewriter kung gusto mo pang pahirapan yung sarili mo. No? May typewriter pa ako, yun ninakaw na yata, pinakilo na. I-print mo muna, no? And then you bound it. Gawin mo siyang na bound form o bago mo patatakan sa BIR. Yan ang loose leaf. But sa manual, walang problema because nakabound na talaga siya. And then, bawal bawasan ng paging. Ha? Itong manual books of accounts natin, may paging yan. Ito, ha? Ito. Itong mga books na to. So, Ilang pages yan? 50 pages yan, bawat isa. Bawal mo bawasan yan, tanggalin. Why? Kasi maku-question ka dyan, baka may tinatago ka, kaya binawasan mo. No? So, bawal. Kung may mali man yan dyan, cross out mo na lang, ulagyan mo na lang na mali. But, the pages should be there. No? Hindi yan tinatanggal o tinatapon o whatever. Because every page is accounted for. Okay. Let's now go to the procedure in the issuance of permit to use loose leaf, no, sa books of accounts or records. But this is still part of the VIDAS 1. Although, ngayon, no, sa procedure ng BAR, delegated na sa regional director yung signing ng permit to use loose leaf. Hindi na nakakarating sa national office kasi dati, national office pa. Coming from the district, ang application, and then i-forward sa region, and then i-forward sa national office. Ngayon, hindi na. Hanggang regional director na lang. Okay, so ano yung gagawin mo? So you submit an application for the loose leaf books of accounts, and then i-refer po yan sa examiner, and then the examiner will make an investigation. No? Yung necessity of the use of the loose leaf forms, and the reason, no? And then gagawa niya ng report ng examiner recommending approval. Kung may mga legal issues, dadaan pa yan sa legal ng BAR. At you will be required to submit samples of the report that you are going to make in the loose leaf. No? Ang mga report mo dyan, conform also with the accounting standards and with the manual books of accounts. Halos pareho lang yan sila. Na ganun din yung contents. Report should include statement of the privilege or fixed taxes. Ito na yung 0605 natin. Privilege tax yan noon or fixed tax. Okay. Examiner should investigate whether all privilege and fixed taxes have been fully paid. No? So in some cases, pinapa-clearance pa yan sila ng examiner, yung mga nag-a-apply ng loose leaf books of accounts. No? Taxpayer should be informed by the investigating examiner that a condition precedent to the issuance of the permit to use loose leaf invoices and receipts is that the taxpayer, upon receipt of the permit, should immediately register with the collection agent or the chief revenue officer, no? A register which should be a bound book. No? Kasi yung loose leaf, pinapabound po talaga yan. No? The bound book should show in detail and in column the serial number of the invoices or receipts printed for use by the business. So additional printing should be recorded in the same side of the bound book. So nakalagay dyan yung serial numbers, invoice and receipts during the week together with the total amount should be entered weekly. No? So dun sa bound book yun. Upon receipt by the Chief Revenue Officer, the report of the investigating examiner, check with his IBM list. So 1947 may IBM na, no? May IBM list of delinquent accounts. No? So ano tong list of delinquent accounts? Ito yung may mga deficiency taxes pa yung taxpayer na hindi niya binayaran sa BAR. So if the taxpayer is delinquent, meaning may tax liabilities pa siya pending in the BAR, the facts should be communicated to the taxpayer and the delinquent account should be paid. So sisingilin yung taxpayer ngayon. Kaya pag may utang ka, huwag ka munang kumuha ng loose leaf na permit. So otherwise, his request to use loose leaf will not be given due course. Why? Because hindi pa process yung request mo for loose leaf. Okay. Revocation of authority to use loose leaf. So you have now your permit. And then you have the violations. Anong violations? Repetition of the failure by taxpayer to submit within the prescribed period sworn certificate to use loose leaf. Ito yung hindi ka nagbibigay ng report sa BIR. At ano yung report na yan? 15 days after the close of the taxable year, dapat lahat ng mga loose leaf mo, pinabound mo, and then there is affidavit, no, sworn statement, attached to that bound na loose leaf, yung nagamit mo lahat during the year, page number, no, and then it should be signed by a authorized person in your company, and then it should be notarized. Nidalhin mo yan sa BIR, patatakan. Pag wala kang ganyan, that can be a ground for the revocation of your permit to use loose leaf. Persons operating home industries. Ano itong home industries? Na-assign ako no, sa Marikina as chief assessment. Chief assessment ako dyan for 3 years. No? And during the time, yung Marikina, yung maraming mga taxpayers dyan, engaged sila in the home industries. Naalala ko pa noon yung NACIDA National Cottage Industries. Yung kanilang industries na sapato sa Marikina, dyan nag-umpisa yan as home industries. No? Sa bahay lang. And then, parang meron kang sarili or small factory na ginagawa mo sa bahay. And then, ibenta mo siya sa labas. Yung ninalako lang o kaya nagsusupply ka sa mga establishment. No? So, dyan nag-umpisa yung sapatos ng Marikina, which we call then as home industries. Yung iba, meron akong taxpayer na yung ginagawa niya, yung parang potato chips. Potato chips na sinasama siya sa mga parang menu, no, na may mga sa mga restaurants na dinalagyan siya ng parang mga palaman. Masarap. Tapos, sinusupply niya sa malalaking restaurant. So, that is also another example of a home industry. Certificate regarding the use of loose leaf books of accounts. Sino nag-i-issue nito? Tingnan nyo dati national office, pero ngayon the regional director na. Binding of journal and ledger. Sabi dito, binding the books by the use of post binders and round head fasteners is sufficient compliance to the regulations. Pero hindi ito tinatanggap. Why? Kasi yung fastener, madali lang siyang bawasan. Ang tinatanggap lang talaga ng BIR ngayon is yung bound ng machine. No? Yung naka-paste talaga siya doon na hindi mo pwedeng tanggalin yung paging. Ito yung mga fastener, hindi na ito tinatanggap. Cash receipts, book in loose leaf. No? So, very particular time, the cash receipts, book in loose leaf. But for your information, even if you are using a loose leaf form for your sales, yung resibo nyo, naka-loose leaf din yan, hindi naka-bound, hindi naka-booklet. No? But your receipt should contain also yung sequential na numbers. No? So, naka-number pa rin yan, 1, 2, 3, 4. Kasi control po yan ng BIR. So, receipt book is part of the journal and therefore the use thereof in loose leaf form is subject to requirements of the use of loose leaf books of accounts. Cash receipt book, no, sinasabi niya dito. Certificate attesting to the number of sheets used in loose leaf cash receipt book should be under oath. Why under oath? Kasi yun talaga yung magdidetermine how much is your sales during the taxable period. Oh, kasi sales book yan eh. Saan, ano bang laman ng sales book? Your total sales during the year, which is also your total pagdating doon sa income statement. Yun yung total sales mo. So, very important. No transactions made in the main establishment. Walang transactions yung main establishment. Office lang siya. The operation is in the branches. Where no sales are affected in the main establishment, no books of accounts and other accounting records needs to be kept and used by said establishment. Where sales are made in both the main and the branch establishments, all should keep and use books of accounts and accounting records. So, kailangan. Unauthorized use of the journal and ledger in loose leaf form. Ibig sabihin, wala kang permit pero ginamit mo yung loose leaf form at saka journal. If you try to look at our train law ngayon, na-incorporate na sa tax code, so kasama na siya ng codal provisions, na pag manual books of accounts ka, manual ka lang, hindi ka pwede mag-loose leaf. Kasi ang nangyayari sa iba, manual books of accounts sila, and then instead of recording directly the manual books of accounts, gumagawa sila sa Excel ng kanilang Excel file na record ng sales, no? And then at the end of the month, ipiprint nila yung Excel file na yan, and then idikit sa libro. Bawal na bawal po yan, and in the train law, incorporated na po yan, napakamahal ng penalties. No? So, pag loose leaf ka lang talaga, hindi ka pwedeng mag-bound. Pag bound ka naman, bound ka lang, hindi ka pwedeng mag-loose leaf. Both will have to be penalized. No? Authority to use loose leaf ledger. Ano yan, may permit yan. No? So, authority granted to main establishment to use loose leaf ledgers does not include a branch establishment. So, ang branch, hindi pwede niyang gamitin yung loose leaf ledgers na walang authority. So, mag-apply siya ng sarili niyang permit to use loose leaf. Use of journal and ledger by branch stores. So, each branch, office, or store must keep journal and a ledger or their equivalents or a simplified set of bookkeeping records depending upon whether respective gross exceed 5,000, no? 5,000 to a quarter. So, yun yung requirement for the use of journal and ledger by branch. Certificate as to the use of loose leaf books of accounts. Okay. Should be under oath. It should be notarized. And then we have other books and records. Ano naman tong other books and records? So all companies, corporations, partnerships, or persons keeping books of accounts may at their option keep subsidiary books as the needs of their business may require. Yung sabi ko sa inyo na depending on the kind of business that you have, you may maintain books of accounts other than the journal, the ledger, the cash receipt, cash disbursement. Anong example? Di ba ikaw ay isang hotel, no? And then you keep your register of guests. So you can maintain special books for your guest register. So, nandoon yung information ng mga guest mo. So provided that where such subsidiaries are kept, they shall form part of your accounting system. Siyempre, once na pinili mo na magkaroon ka ng subsidiary books, it form part of your accounting system. Why form part of accounting system? Because during the audit, that books na subsidiary mo will also be shown to the examiner. Okay. So, yung mga subsidiaries books na yan, subject to the same rules and regulations as to their keeping, translation, production, and inspections as are applicable to the journal and ledger. So kung ano yung rules and regulations natin sa journal and ledger, applicable din siya doon sa sinasabi natin ng mga special books of accounts. Ilan yung ating participants? Ha? Okay. So more or less yun lang, hindi lalayo dyan yung bibigyan natin ng certificate, ha? Because ang ibig sabihin lang, all others, hindi naman po sila kumpleto, no? So, yung hindi talaga nakakumpleto, wag na kayong mangulit. Kasi mayroong iba na, ma'am, hindi ako naka-receive. Hindi ka kasi kumpleto, kaya hindi ka naka-receive, no? So, next, use of double entry bookkeeping system, the one we learned yesterday, the debit and credit. So, it should be the double entry bookkeeping system. At meron na tayong mga standards ngayon on the accounting that we apply. Ito yung sa International Financial Reporting Standards for the accounting standards natin for full IFRS and for small and medium enterprises. So what are these subsidiary books? Ito yung special kind of books, no? required to be kept by our taxpayers as a record of their business transactions. The subsidiary book shall be subject to the same rules and regulations applicable to journal and the ledgers. So use of the subsidiary books, they shall form part of the accounting system of the taxpayer, subject to the same rules and regulations as to their keeping, translation, production, inspection, applicable to the journal and ledger. So the requirement of registration and approval prior to the use of the journal and ledger is applicable to the subsidiary books. So dahil nasabi natin, whatever is the regulations for the journal and ledger, kasama pa rin dyan yung sa subsidiary books or the special books. Charge sales book and charge purchase book. Ano to? Ito yung mga pautang. So charge sales book and charge purchase book correspond to customer's ledger and creditor's ledger. So yun ang equivalent sa charge sales book and charge purchase book. But for what purposes, meron tayong separate na requirements doon for the subsidiary sales book and subsidiary purchase book, which contains the information especially on the input and output tax. Delivery receipts as part of accounting records. So yung iba, may delivery receipts. When they issue delivery receipts, hindi na sila nag-i-issue na sales invoice. So mali po yun. Why? Because delivery receipts is only a proof of delivery. It is not a proof of sale. In order for you to have proof of sale, you should issue kung goods yan, kasi deliver mo na. Kung goods yan, anong resibo mo? The sales invoice. For services, it should be the official receipts. So ano tong delivery order receipts? Used by a firm in accompanying the delivery of manufactured lead or sales made by it in its Manila office. So like regular invoices and receipts, part of the accounting records and therefore subject to registration and approval. So lahat naman, ang resibo is regulated. So sabi natin, delivery receipts, hindi naman yan proof of sales. But since sabi dito, even delivery receipts are part of the accounting records, then kasama pa rin siya pagka in-audit yung taxpayer. Okay. Ito namang records of job received by contractors. Mayroon pang bagong accounting standards, no? At saka yung requirements about contractors. So, records of jobs received by contractors. Sino-sino itong mga contractors? They are the road, building, waterworks, and other construction work contractors. And also other persons subject to tax under Section 191 of the National Internal Revenue Code shall, in addition to the books and accounts required in Chapter 2 of these regulations, must keep a register book for job orders. So, iba pa yung mga books na ni-require na ng BAR. On top of that, meron ka pang special books. So, keep a register book for job orders received in which they shall enter immediately upon making a contract of the date, name, address of the customer, description of the articles to be constructed or the services desired, the consideration, therefore, and the amount of deposit. So, more or less, yan yung mga information na kailangan natin doon sa books of accounts. Doon sa job order, yung books or register books for job orders. Okay. So, nandoon din yung service desired or the consideration, and then the amount of deposit or partial payment. And upon completion and delivery of the subject matter of the contract, the date of completion or delivery and the amount paid therefore. Kasi, ano to yung sa construction. Ano naman tong, we're talking still of subsidiary books. No? So, meron pa din yung keepers of hotels and lodging houses. So, in lieu of the records of jobs received, Keep a guest register book in which shall entered immediately upon accepting guest. Ito na yung example ko kanina sa inyo, yung uh, guest, no, register book. Andiyan lahat yung mga pumapasok. The entry shall be numbered consecutively for purposes of reference. Books prescribed herein shall conform substantially with Form C of the appendix. Register book for job orders. So, kanina, yung books yun para sa contractors. And then we discussed also the books para sa mga hotel, no, and restaurants. Ngayon, register book naman for job orders. And usually, sino yung nagpapa-job orders? Ito yung mga service-oriented company. So, one engaged in a machine shop should, in addition to regular books of accounts, no, ano yung regular books of accounts natin? Journal, ledger, cash receipt, cash disbursement. And then if you are about registered taxpayer, excuse me, subsidiary sales book and subsidiary purchase book. Okay. So we have our register book for job orders. Ito yung sa mga services, no? Mga shops. Ano yung content ng register book nila for job orders? Nakalagay dyan yung contract, the date, name, address of customer, description of the articles to be constructed or the services desired, the consideration therefore, the amount of deposit or partial payment, and then upon completion and delivery, the date of completion or delivery and the amount paid. So yun ang content ng register book for job orders. Okay, so however, should he find the use of said register book impracticable for his business, so, hindi kailangan, he may devise such system of keeping books and other records. Alam nyo, lahat ng inconveniences dito, hindi natin tumaranasan if we maintain a computerized books of accounts. Kasi pati archiving natin, electronic na lahat. So kung ano yung nakita ninyo sa manual, ibang-iba na yan doon sa computerized books. Records to be kept, no, for stockbrokers, dealers in securities, real estate brokers, real estate dealers, commercial, customs, and immigration brokers shall use serially numbered contract forms. So, may contract forms sila na ginagamit. And it should be serially numbered. So, meaning naka-account bawat kontrata. Shall be issued in chronological order, sunod-sunod. For each agreement had with their customers. Ano naman yung information na kailangan nandun? The date, the other facts concerning the services rendered or to be rendered, and the signature of the parties thereto. So, yun ang dapat i-keep ng mga stockbrokers, dealers in securities, real estate brokers, real estate dealers, commercial, customs, and immigration brokers. So, ang dami palang klase ng brokers, no? Alam ko ang brokerage is also a course. So, the contract shall be recorded every day in a register book showing the date, the number of the contract, no? Kasi ang unang requirements is for the stockbrokers to maintain serially numbered na contract, no? So once na ginamit mo na yun, nag-issue ka na, ano na yung next mo? It should be recorded every day in a register book. Ano yung information required? The date and number of the contract, the name of the customer, the services desired, the subject matter, and the value thereof. Ano yung value? Siyempre yung bayad, no? The compensation agreed upon and the duration of the contract. And upon termination of the contract, a remark as to the date and number of the receipt issued for the compensation received. Okay. Sino naman tong commercial brokers required to keep books of accounts? No? Commercial broker is subject to 6% tax on gross compensation. Being subject to internal revenue tax is required to keep books of accounts in accordance with the law ng ito yung mga commercial brokers. No? Ito namang records of inventories. Tingnan nyo ha, matagal na panahon na that inventories are required to be filed. So what are these records of inventories? Persons required by law to pay internal revenue taxes on business or shall keep, in addition to other books, records prescribed in these regulations. Ito yung book of inventories. No? And how will you record in your book of inventories? The quantity, description, unit, and total cost of every item of the stocks in trade, material, supplies, and other goods found in the premises of the establishment. Alam nyo, yung bagong form on the inventories, nakalagay dyan, kahit hindi ikaw yung may-ari, but the goods, kasi yan ang karamihan ng sabi ng iba eh, pag stock taking yung mga examiners, sasabihin, ay hindi po sa amin yan ma'am, iniwan lang, ibang may-ari niyan. So anong sabi ng regulations? Kahit hindi sa iyo yan, basta goods found in your premises na sa compound mo, isama mo sa inventory. Ilagay mo dyan na hindi sa iyo, no? Pero kasama sa inventory mo. Inventory beginning shall be made and submitted to the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. Sa, ano yan, Revenue District Office where you are registered. No? So doon mo is-submit. Within 10 days after securing the privilege tax. Privilege tax, ito na yung 0605. Ngayon, so bayaran na naman ng fixed 0605 na 500 no, pagdating ng January. And then renewal na naman ng permits ng mga mayor's permit. So the period in meritorious cases be extended by the commissioner. Pero ngayon wala na mga extension to eh. May mga deadlines. Now although during the pandemic, during the lockdown, nagkaroon ng mga regulations extending the deadline. No? So ngayon wala pa namang lockdown, so I think walang extension yung deadlines. Invoices or receipts. Invoices or receipts are regulated. May regulations tayo dyan. So you are going to follow all those regulations. So before we discuss invoices or receipts, let's have a few minutes break. there should be a format for the receipts. Kaya if naranasan nyo nang nagpa-register, no, at kumuha ng permit to print receipts, there is a requirement na sasabit nyo muna yung layout. No? Why? Because in that case, it is being evaluated kung compliant pa siya doon sa requirements. Okay. So, all persons subject to internal revenue tax shall, for its sale, this is an administrative requirement of the BAR, no? For its sale or transfer of merchandise or for services rendered valued at 2 pesos or more, administrative requirements in the BAR, which is already in the codal provisions of the NIRC, but itong yung binabasa ko sa inyo ngayon is the provisions of the Revenue Regulations VIDAS 1. So, hindi sila magkakalayo. Valued at 2 pesos or more, prepare and issue sales or commercial invoices or receipts, serially numbered in duplicate, showing among other things their names, styles, if any. Ngayon, meron na tayong VAT law, no? Meron tayong VAT laws and regulations under sections 105 to 115, yan, no, ng NIRC. And then, may sarili namang requirements yung VAT receipts. What are the information that should mandatorily be put in your VAT receipts? No? Nakalagay doon yung name of the business establishment, the address, the VAT registration or the TIN number, and then nakalagay dyan yung sales invoice, the yung sequence number ng receipts, no, 001, and then yung pangalan ng printer sa baba, kung ilang number yung booklet. Excuse me. And also the validity. Yun ang pinaka-importante sa lahat. The validity of the receipts, which is only for 5 years. After 5 years, your receipts will expire. So, hindi na pwedeng gamitin. So, all you have to do, before the prescription date ng receipts, dapat nagpapagawa na ng resibo. Okay? So, original of its sales invoice, ito, nandito yung old na requirements, but still being followed up to now. So, yung original ng sales invoice, ibigay mo yan sa customer. Pero, yung duplicate shall be kept and preserved by the person subject to tax. So, kung ikaw yung nag-issue, yung duplicate, maiwan talaga yan sa inyo. Huwag mong tanggalin doon sa stub niya kasi nga doon ka sa bound, no? So, naka-bound yan. Nandun pa rin yan sa stub. Yung original lang na resibo, yun yung ibigay mo doon sa customer. And, ano po yung pinaka-importante? Whatever the information contained in the original sales invoice should be the information contained in your duplicate. No? So, hindi pwede yung sinulatan mo ng ibang figures yung original, binigay mo sa customer, tapos iba yung amount na nandyan sa duplicate mo. No? Natitrace na yan ngayon, especially if you are VAT, because you are required to make a summary list of sales and purchases. So, lahat ng summary list of purchases nyo, na re-reconcile na yan ngayon. So, makikita, kung hindi tugma yung amount ng seller at saka ng purchaser, pinapa-reconcile yan. Okay. So, the person subject to tax whose gross sales or earnings or receipts during the last preceding year exceed 20,000 pesos, for each sale or transaction, issue an invoice or receipts irrespective of the value of the article sold or service rendered. Para yun sa non-VAT. Pero sa VAT natin, sa VAT provisions natin, if you are a VAT registered person, any amount, walang threshold, you should issue a receipt. So, the Commissioner of Internal Revenue may in meritorious cases exempt any person subject to Internal Revenue tax. So, ini-exempt niya. Sino yung ma-in-exempt niya? Ito, nandito In any event, public market vendors selling exclusively domestic meat. No? So, public market vendors, yung mga palengke natin na wet market. selling domestic meat, fruits, vegetables, game, poultry, fish, and other domestic food products are hereby exempted from the provision of this section. So yung mga nagtitinda ng mga isda, ng mga yung mga tahong, no, yung mga ano ba yung parang mga damo sa dagat, exempted sila from the issuance of receipts. O kaya pag namalengke yung mga restaurant owners sa palengke, wala talaga silang resibo. No? Yun yung problema nila. And this restaurant owner, once niluto na nila yung mga binili nila sa market, no, sa wet market, wala, may VAT na. So anong mangyayari? Sabi ko, you shoulder the VAT. Kasi may isang officer no, ng Restaurant Association pumunta sa akin. Ma'am, wala kaming VAT, source of VAT kasi ganito. So anong gagawin nyo? Sabi ko, you incorporate in the costing of your goods yung VAT na 12%. Eh mura lang naman binili mo yung alimango. Tapos niluto mo, nilagyan mo ng gata, nilagyan mo ng mga sibuyas. Ano ba yun? Yung luya. Subject to VAT na. So, anong gagawin mo? You add the 12% VAT in your price. Mahal naman kumain sa restaurant eh. Lalo ng mga seafoods ang mahal. So, dapat sabi ko, incorporate nyo na. Huwag na kayong mag-claim ng input tax. May laki ng babayaran namin. Malaki talaga, but you pass it on to your customers. Ito namang VAT registered taxpayers, the moment you pass on the 12% VAT to your customers, huwag nyo isipin na yung 12% sa inyo pa rin. No? That should be the thinking of the taxpayer. Hindi yung pinasa mo na yung tax mo na dapat ikaw nagbayad, pinasa mo na sa customer. And then yung pinasa mo na yun sa iyo pa rin. Hindi po ganun. Kasi mahirapan tayo dyan. So every time you pass the VAT, the 12% VAT, para na sa gobyerno yun. Huwag nyo nang kunin. Yung para sa inyo, yun na lang yung selling price net of VAT. Okay. Sari-sari store owners to submit inventory of their stocks in trade. Ayan Itong mga sari-sari store owner ngayon, malalaki na to, mga groceries na to, especially dito sa Metro Manila. Wala namang tindahan dito na sari-sari store na sobrang liit, no? Okay. Anong sabi dito? Magsasubmit din sila ng inventory of their stocks and trades. Sino yung hindi, or exemption? May exemption sa annual inventory. Ito yung mga jewelry stores, no? At saka yung mga sanglaan. Why? For security reason daw. Kasi mahal yung mga, ano na yan mga alahas. So, hindi na sila nire-require to make an inventory. No? Inventory of brands and main stores. Purchases of the brand store made in the name of the principal store should be treated by keeping memorandum thereof and taken up in the books of accounts on the principal store. Why? Kasi isa lang naman ang report, no? Nasa main stores lang, hindi nagre-report yung brands. Okay. Meat vendors inside public market. Person selling domestic meat exclusively kasi yung mga nasa supermarket, subject na din sila sa VAT, no? Exclusively in public markets are exempt from the requirement of issuing sales or commercial invoices or receipts. Kailan nagiging subject to VAT itong meat? Once na process na siya, halimbawa, meron na siyang mga ingredients, no? Pinrocess nyo na siya, nilagay na sa can or whatever, nagiging VATable na siya. Pero yung ordinary process lang, as if consider pa rin sila in their original state, exempt pa rin sila. Ito yung hindi ko ma-explain na sa sarili ko. Kasi itong raw materials ng Jollibee, ng McDonald's, their original state yan But they're claiming VAT, no? Meron silang mga supplier na naka-VAT receipts. So they're claiming VAT. Form and manner of issuance of invoices and receipts. Ano to? Invoice or receipts. Bago na to, mayroon na tayong regulations na 2013 in which yung form ng invoices and receipts are already changed. At yun na nga yung may validity lang siya na 5 years, and then yung mga printers of the receipts are accredited. No? Why accredited? Because may requirement ng form. So kung hindi siya accredited, hindi siya pwedeng mag-print ng resibo sa BIR. No? So may accreditation na. Invoices or receipts may have many duplicate copies as may be necessary. So pwedeng duplicate, triplicate, quadruplicate, quintuplicate, sextuplicate, sa hanggang ilang plate yan, pwede. Depending on the use na gusto nyo. No? But anong daw ang kailangan? The duplicate copy shall bear the same serial number as the original. And it should also be na kung paano mo in-issue yung original receipts, kung ilang duplicates yung ginawa mo, should also contain the same information as the original that you issued. So, hindi pwedeng bago-baguhin mo yung iba yung nandun sa duplicate, sa triplicate, iba naman yung entries mo. That is a violation. Admission tickets. Ano itong mga admission tickets? No? Ito dati pa to, sa mga sinehan pa to. Pero ngayon, I don't know ha, may nanonood pa ba ng sine? Jeff, may nanonood pa ng sine? Meron pa? O? So, paano sila nagbabayad? Ganon din, yung may admission ticket sila na ini-issue. Binibigay, no? So, that admission ticket is also regulated. Pag print pa lang yan, may mga serial number yan, at saka may amount na dyan, no? So, itong mga admission tickets, other records na ini-issue ng person subject to amusement tax. Halimbawa, may mga gymnasium, nagpa-boxing sila, nag-issue din sila ng ticket, no? Those are also regulated. May permit din po yan sa BAR, and then may amount, may sequential na number din bawat tickets. No? So in the case of amusement or business places where fees or cover charges are required to be paid for admission, yung proprietor, yung may-ari, lessee or operator, shall provide with tickets which shall evidence payment of fees or cover charges. So may ano yan, may tickets yan na regulated din ng BIR. The ticket shall be serially numbered, indicate the name of the place of amusement or business, and the fees or cover charges. The serial number of its ticket and the admission fee or cover charge shall be printed on the ticket twice. Kasi, di ba, pinupunit yung ticket. So, bakit twice yung information? Kasi yung ticket na tinanggal na kalahati, maiwan yan doon sa nag-issue eh. Tapos yung isa doon sa bumili, no, sa customer. It should contain the same information. Kaya dapat dalawang information yung naka-print, no? Isa doon sa paghinati na, an isa din doon sa user nung kabila, no? Shall be printed on the ticket twice, that when the ticket is divided into two, upon being presented for admission, both the serial number and the price shall appear on both parts. So makikita pa rin yung serial number, makikita pa rin yung price ng ticket, kahit hinati mo na siya. Okay? So yun po yung requirements. Okay? So our last topic is the cash register machine and e-sales reporting. So we're done with our revenue regulations VIDAS 1. Okay? So hopefully may guide na tayo doon sa bookkeeping natin on the especially revenue regulations VIDAS 1. Yung mga sumunod, VIDAS 2, VIDAS 3, mga amendments na lang yun. But the mother regulations for bookkeeping is the revenue regulations VIDAS 1. So now let's go to cash register machines and the e-sales reporting. Ang dami nito, no? Once you're using a cash register machine, it has a permit, no? And then there is a special requirements for all those users of cash register machines that you are going to report. No, mayroong platform ang BIR dito on e-sales reporting na every month, whatever the sale that you generate in your cash register machine, you have to report it in the platform of the BIR, yung e-sales. No, failure on your part, napakalaki ng penalty, no? 10,000 a day. Kaya, Ang dami sinulatan ng BIR dyan. So if you have your cash register machine, be sure na nagre-report kayo dito sa e-sales reporting. Otherwise, wag na kayong gumamit ng cash register machine. Okay. So, Revenue Memorandum Circular Number 72-2018, dated June 18, 2018. Ito yung nagre-require ng validation ng sales generated from point of sale machine. Ano yung point of sale machine? Ito yung computerized na machine na nag-generate ng sales. Nag-i-issue din ng resibo. No? Ano naman itong cash register machine? Halos ang function ng POS at saka ng cash register machine, pareho lang, no? Although, mas powerful yung POS kasi more computerized siya. Ang cash register machine sometimes, meron pang hindi masyadong computerized, no? Ano naman tong special purpose machines? Ito yung special purpose machines, hindi siya nag-i-issue ng resibo. But for purposes of recording ng may-ari, nandyan siya sa place of establishment. No? Kasi sabi ko na nga sa inyo, since 2000, no, kami yung pioneer dito sa evaluation ng mga machines na yan, evaluation ng computer accounting system. Ang dami namin nakikita during the evaluation at the site, no, at the place of the business ng taxpayers. Nandyan yung mga machines na wala namang permit. And if you ask them na, bakit nandyan po, meron kayong machines na ganito, ganito. Sabi nila, for internal purposes lang yan, hindi yan ginagamit na pang-issuance ng resibo. Although, pag talikod mo, ginagamit din nila, mag-i-issue sila ng resibo. Hindi na nag-i-issue ng resibo, yun na lang printed coming from those special machines, yun na lang nila, binibigay nila sa sa customer. Nakita ko yan sa isang pharmacy, no, parang buteka, na hindi naman sila nag-i-issue nung talagang resibo from the special purpose machines na lab permit. No? So, anong sinasabi sa special purpose machines? Even special purpose machines for internal purposes should have a permit from the BAR. Otherwise, tanggalin mo yan doon sa place of business mo. No? Other sales receipt system or software, receipting, invoicing, or computerized accounting system. Kasi ang computerized accounting system also issue receipts. But even if it is generated by a computerized accounting system, the software, yung resibo mo should also contain the same format with that of the manual receipts. Pareho lang sila. So, meron din siyang name ng may-ari, the address, the VAT registered TIN, the serial number, tapos yung mga information, same lang din sila with that of the manual invoice. No? So, including online sale transactions, ayan na. Online sale transactions, ano din sila ng revenue memorandum na to. No? And manual invoices, receipts, and also the supplemental commercial documents. What are the supplemental commercial documents? Ito yung mga acknowledgement receipts, delivery receipts. Why supplemental? Because the transactions is fully compliant even if wala sila. No? So, basta mayroong sales invoice lang, official receipts, kahit wala ng supplemental receipts, pwede na. No? And anyway, yung supplemental receipts na yan, if you use that, there should be a counterpart pa na official receipts or sales invoice. Okay. So, anong purpose nitong 72-2018? To effectively monitor and validate the accuracy of sales declaration generated from point of sale machine, cash register machine, special purpose machine, other sales receipting system or software. Kaya meron itong revenue memorandum na to. No? Okay. Ito yung mga procedures. Okay. So, there should be a post-evaluation ng POS, CRM. Ano yung post-evaluation? Nabigyan ka na ng permit, lahat-lahat nabigay na sa iyo, but after that, i-evaluate ka pa ulit. No? How you comply with the requirements. So, post-evaluation of POS, CRM, special purpose machine, and other sales resisting software. No? Pati yung computerized accounting system. Simultaneously with other enforcement activities. Ano tong other enforcement activities? Ito yung TCBD or tax, ito yung tax mapping drive no, ng BIR ito. Validation drive. Basta TCBD ito yung tax mapping. And then the surveillance. Ano naman yung surveillance? Surveillance is the team, no, can be revenue officers, are equipped with the mission order. And once they have the mission order, they will stay in your business establishment for a number of days, mga 15 days. They will get every day your sales, no? And then, yun yung magiging basihan on your records kung magkano yung nire-report mo. No? Parang benchmark. And then there is also an inventory stock taking. Sometimes, pagulatan lang to, biglaan, para hindi mo itago yung inventory mo. So, bigla na lang, mayroon ng mga machines, no? Bigla na lang may mga, anong tawag dito? Examiners na darating, equipped also with mission order, na mag-i-stock taking na sila, anuhan na nila, titingnan na nila yung mga stocks nyo, bibilangin kung tama yung report mo sa BIR. And also during audit or investigation. Okay. So, inventory of the POS or CRM. Sometimes, ang pinakamasakla po dito, no, sa mga POS, CRM, ginagamit na walang permit. No? At saka hindi ko maintindihan. Makikita mo sa mga business establishment, sa mga fast foods, meron silang mga cash register machine, yung pinipindot-pindot, no, mga terminals na yan ng, mga cashier nila. Ano po yan? Di ba doon na nag-generate ng resibo? So mga cash register machines yan, o mga POS yan. O lahat yan may permit sa BIR. But nakikita ko, tinatago nila yung permit nila sa BIR, hindi pinapakita. No? Kung ano yung mga nilalagay nila doon sa likod. Na ako naman, since kakilala ko yung mga pumiperma dyan, sinisilip ko naman, sino kayang RDO ngayon dito? Sino yung nagperma nito? No? And then, so the BIR will check your inventory ng mga POS, CRM, SPM. Ano yung titingnan nila? Yung kanilang records based on their own database. Ano ba itong mga POS or CRM na meron kang permits? And then titingnan nila yan doon sa actual. No? I-reconcile nila. Ano ba yung nandun sa actual mo? Dito sa permit mo, you apply for 10 POS at saka cash register machine. Bakit doon sa actual 20 na? No? So, talaga nangyayari and we penalize pagka ganyan. Yung iba nga, kino-confiscate. No? Okay. Post-evaluation guide, no, shall be accomplished for every machine. Imagine na, for every machine. Biro mo kung 100 yung machine mo, so, bawat isa yan gagawa niya ng post-evaluation guide ng examiner. No? Pero ako, during my time, na-enjoy ko yan. Why? Kasi, kasama na pasyal sa mall. No? Kasi ang mall lang naman ang pinakamaraming mga cash register machine. Sa mga ibang establishment, 2, 3 lang. So, mabilis lang. The post-evaluation kit shall contain a pre-filled up PEG form, post-evaluation guide form, for every registered machine. Why? Kasi meron ng database ang BIR about the machines. Kasi dumaan na yan doon at nagkuha na ng permit. So may reason na. At alam nyo, ang machines, parang tao din yan na may TIN. Ang machine naman MIN, no? Machine Identification Number. Why? Kasi nag-i-issue siya ng resibo eh. So dapat meron din siyang, kumbaga sa identity. No? Kasi kaya ang machine, meron siyang Machine Identification Number. Just like the tao na mayroong tax identification number. And then there is also a permit to use. No? Bawat machine yan may permit to use. And the serial number. as well as the blank PAG form for unregistered machines. So, pagpunta doon ng team that will evaluate your cash register machines, your point of sale machines, may dala na yan sila, equipped na sila with the forms. Okay. So, anong gagawin nila? List of MATS, POS, CRM, SPM per BIR database. Ano yan? With physical inventory. So, yung listahan ninyo, ano ba yung mga may permit doon na cash register machines, titingnan yan kung nagmamatch ba yan doon sa physical inventory. Kasi kung hindi, halimbawa, mas marami yung may permit. Halimbawa, sa permit, 10. Doon sa actual, 5 lang. O, nasaan yung 5? So, hahanapin yan. Kasi nga, nire-reconcile. Or, doon sa listing, yung may permit 10, doon sa physical, nung tiningnan na, 20. So, ibig sabihin, ginagamit yung cash register machines without any permit. Or, ano ba yun, yung ginagamit din nila yung permit ng isang machine doon sa ibang machines. Just like, nangyayari to sa LTO, no? Yung isang franchise ng bus. Isang franchise lang Kaya sa taxi, ganun din yan. Ginagamit ng 5 bus. No? So, pare-parehas lang sila ng franchise. Ganun din sa taxi. No? So, isang franchise ng taxi, 5 taxi yung gumagamit. So, nangyayari yan. That's why there is a post-evaluation. List of unmatched POS. Ano itong mga list of unmatched? Hindi magtatali yung physical at saka yung listing ng BIR sa permit ng taxpayer. Mind you, may may database yung BIR on the cash register machine issued for every establishment. Ang pinakamarami sa experience ko, SM. Napakarami nilang machines. Sometimes meron pa silang mga backup na isang building, puro machines lahat. Okay. Kasi hindi pwede na wala kang backup pag may nasira ka na machines. Dapat meron ka agad kapalit. So they have to list down the unmatched POS or CRM and then summary of findings of observations. Okay. The list of matched and unmatched POS and other receipting machines shall be prepared on the first day of the post-evaluation. And it should be acknowledged by the responsible office or company. So, hindi sila pwedeng gumawa ng report. Actually, sa BIR, even sa surveillance, even sa stock taking, kung ano man yung nag-gather ng examiners doon na actual, that should be signed by the responsible officer of the company. Para hindi naman it will show na gawa-gawa lang yun ng BIR. So, it should be countersigned by the taxpayer. No? So taxpayer shall reconcile and explain in writing kung may discrepancy doon sa POS or hindi nag-match, no? And kailan yan? Within 5 days from receipt of the letter notice. So service provider or supplier, ito na. Even the service provider, supplier ng mga post POS or at saka cash register machine, no? Points of sale machine and then the cash register machine. Lahat ng yan, pati supplier, are also accredited ngayon. Hindi na pwedeng bumili sila dun sa hindi accredited suppliers. So the service provider shall be subjected also to post-evaluation, no? Sino yung mga service provider na yan? Shall assist in the extraction of sales data. Alam niyo yung mga experiences namin dito noon. Sasabihin, ma'am, wala po kaming technical persons. Ma'am, hindi namin alam paano kukunin yung Z-reading. Kaya wala magawa yung BIR. Kaya ngayon, tingnan mo, dito sa memorandum order, ano nang ginawa dito? Sino na yung magbibigay ng Z-reading? Kasi sasabihin nung taxpayer, hindi po namin alam yan. Yung service provider, Hindi na niya pwedeng sabihin na hindi alam. Why? Kasi sila nga nagpo-provide. Otherwise, ba't ka mag-provide ng product na hindi mo alam? You will be penalized na. No? So, itong generation ng Z-reading and electronic sales journal per machine shall be performed simultaneously with the conduct of physical inventory machines. Yan ang purpose ng evaluation. No? Kukunin na din nila pati yung Z-reading. Kasi ano yan sila kumuha ng information for the database. So, taxpayer shall submit the extracted Z-reading and e-journal not later than the second day of the post-evaluation. May mga mission order po yan sila. This shall cover the beginning of the ending Z-reading e-journal for the period indicated in the mission order. So, yung mission order, sino nagsasign yan? Usually, pagka ang coverage mo within the region, it's the regional director. Pero pag ang coverage ng mission order mo is national, should be the commissioner. Data shall be validated and extracted from all the sources. So, CRM-POS, other sales receipting software, and computerized accounting system consisting of Z-reading, e-journal, back-end reports, yan may back-end reports pa, from the standalone system. Ano yung standalone system? Yung mismong machine na, nandyan na siya lahat. No? May mga capable na siya to generate the reports. Yung iba kasi, terminal lang, meron pa siyang server or back-end reports, doon kinukuha yung mga reports. Ano yun, nagre-receive lang siya dito ng, kung halimbawa terminal siya, doon magbabayad, kinukuha lang niya yung sales. Pero wala siyang record nandoon sa back-end. No? Pero kung standalone, nandiyan na lahat dun sa machine. Capable na siya of retrieving the reports or recording. So, server, middleware, or consolidator depending on the system and software setup. Kaya nga dapat pagka ganyan, may technical persons ka talaga. If ang business establishment has no technical person, yung kanilang provider or supplier. So there's, alam niyo pag ang supplier naman, ito experience ko to kasi hawak ko to dati nung nag-chief ako ng registration, lahat yan dumadaan yan sa akin. Ang mga supplier, vendor ng machines, very friendly sa BIR. Why? Kasi hindi sila makabenta. Usually, ang deal nila with their customers, sila na ang nagpapa-approve sa BIR ng permit, no? So, pagka hindi yan issue ng permit ng BIR, hindi sila babayaran ng customer. So, anong ginagawa nila? They are very friendly with the BIR. Kaya lahat ng mga reports na kailangan ng BIR, they should provide. At in the level of the customer or taxpayer, sometimes yung mga technical requirements sa system, hindi nila alam ibigay. But of course, yung supplier, pwede niya ibigay lahat. And hindi niya pwedeng sabihin na hindi niya kaya ibigay. No? So this shall also include sales from online transactions, unmanned bill. Ano yung unmanned bill? Siguro yung customer na lang pag nagbayad, no? Sarili niya. Coin or token operated machines, yung mga vending machines. Unregistered machines used to record sales transactions and defective or damaged machines which were not reported. So lahat yan naka-report yan, no, sa BIR. Alam nyo, itong mga vending machines sa Japan, puro vendo machines na doon. No? At saka ang bintahan sa Japan, hindi cash, ano yung token. Kakain ka halimbawa sa mga restaurant, bili ka muna ng token. No? Yung token naman nila parang chips lang yan. Bibilhin mo dun sa cashiers. Tapos pagdating na dun sa kakain ka na, yun na yung ibibigay mo. And usually, yung token naman nila at the price naman ng kanilang meal. No? So, ganyan naman sa Japan. At napakarami nilang vending machines. Alam niyo, maglalakad ka sa yung sidewalk, especially sa Tokyo. No? Doon kami kasi nag-stay sa studio ko sa Washington Hotel. No? That was provided by JICA. May allowance pa kami. When I visited Japan, red passport kami, diplomat kami ng Philippines. So, may sarili kaming tagabantay. No? May interpreter pa kami. Hatid sundo kami sa hotel. No? Sarap pala pagka diplomat ka. No? Talagang binabantayan ka ng Japan. Ngayon, itong mga vending machine nila, ang dami. No? Na naman ako along the way kasi araw-araw doon kami dumadaan sa Shinjuku. Sari-sari na mga vending machines. May mga drinks, may mga, kung ano na gusto mong bilhin, naka-vending machine siya. So, pindutin mo lang yan, magbabayad ka ng token. No? Alam mo na, imagine ko, sabi ko, itong mga vending machine na to, kung nasa Pilipinas to, pati vending machine, wala na. Nanakawin. Kahit na nga yung mga, yung ATM machines na dinalagay sa mga bangko, pati yan nanakaw. Pero mo, vending machine mismo, yung ATM machines, kinarga sa, di ba may nangyari ng ganyan. Kaya pala, itong mga bangko, may na-aksidente kasi doon sa Timog dati. Siya, sagasaan, nakamotor. Ang trabaho pala niya, nag-iikot, BPI siya, nag-iikot at tinitingnan yung mga ATM machines nila. Nasagasaan siya gabi. So, sabi ko, itong mga vending machine na to, vending machines sa Japan, andyan lang sa sidewalk, sobrang dami. Kung ano yung gusto mo, tinawanan ba ako kasi may mga binili kami na binaong ko dun sa seminar. Yun pala, wine. No? Tawa sila ng tawa na ako. Pag ininom mo yan, malalasing ka. Hindi ko naman alam. Ang ganda ng muka. Akala ko juice. No? Pero sabi ko, pag nasa Pilipinas to, wala na to. Pati bindo machine na nakawin. No? Dito, meron din tayong mga bindo machines, but nasa loob ng establishment. No? If you try to look at hindi ko alam kasi tagal ko nang hindi nakapasok sa SM. Ewan ko kung may mga window machines pa dyan na may mga token-token lang. Pero karamihan ng mga window machines natin nasa loob ng establishments, wala sa labas. Okay. So, halimbawa, during the evaluation, there are unregistered machines. No? Anong gagawin ng revenue officer? Issue an apprehension slip. Ang dami kong na-issue na apprehension slip. No? And immediately steal the machine after the extraction of sales data. Kunin mo muna yung laman ng sales data ng machine bago mo naman siya i-steal. No? At ano yung gagawin doon? Halimbawa, sabi nila, ma'am, di ba pwede na mag-stop kami ng operation namin. So, ano yung SOP naman doon? The BIR will provide them with a BPR or the BIR provisional receipts where they can issue. Kasi, sinil na yung kanilang yung machines. Or, meron silang backup na printed receipts. O, requirement din yan. Kahit na may cash register machines ka, you are also required to have a backup na hard copy, na resibo. Why? Because in case of breakdown of your machines, you have something to use as a receipt in lieu of the cash register machine. So, hindi ma-hamper yung operations mo. However, upon registration and payment of related deficiency taxes, including penalties, the machines can be unsealed upon the approval of the RDO or the large taxpayer. I-unsealed yan kung bayaran mo yung penalties at ang mahal ng penalties. May first offense, second offense, third offense. Meron kami nahuli, yung Texas chicken yata yun noon. Wala na ngayon yun Ang dami niya cash register machines. Pero hindi niya nung upon termination ng kanyang business, dapat isurrender mo yung permit mo sa BIR. Huwag mong galawin. Pag ginalaw mo yan, hindi mo na yan magamit. No? Mahihirapan ka na, hindi ka i-clear ng BIR and yung machine mo hindi mo na magamit. So, anong ginawa nila? Hindi nila sinurrender sa BIR yung permit. So, pinuntahan namin ang dami. And they were penalized at that time, 50,000 per machines. So, that's a lot of money. I-close ka na nga. Tapos magbabayad ka pa 50,000. Ang daming machines. So, kawawa naman yung taxpayers. But, kaya yung sabi ko nga, alam mo, nung nasa BIR pa lang ako, nakikita ko na yung hirap ng mga taxpayers. Kaya sabi ko, if ever I practice, I see to it na talagang guarded yung client mo and with proper compliance. Kaya I'm very thankful to YouTube. Kasi meron silang platform na free na you can share your ideas. Kaya itong tax training, ano ito? For better tax compliance. Why? Because stiff ang penalties. Sometimes hindi mo alam. Akala mo, wala ka na, may permit ka ng cash register machine, hindi ka na nag-register. So okay na. Hindi mo alam, there is still a requirement. Ibalik mo sa BAR yung permit mo. And then ipa-reading mo kung ano man yung laman ng machines mo. I-clear mo muna yan. Hindi pwedeng pabayaan mo na lang. And you will incur penalties. No? So nag-close ka na penalty ka pa. Okay. For machines that are subject of application for withdrawal from its use due to retirement, sale, repair, upgrade, modification, yan and transfer, immediate verification and conduct of reading thereof shall be done. Kaya i-report mo yan sa BAR para ma-imbestiga yan, makuha yung sales or yung reading ma-generate. No? Do not read na ikaw lang. No? Dapat may presence of the revenue officer. No? So ano yung information na kailangan? All the sales data registered in the machine up to the last day it was used are properly recorded for internal revenue purposes. Halimbawa, yung permit mo is 2,000. Nag-retire ka ng 2015, 2020, so 20 years. Lahat ng information nandyan yan upon closure. No? So it should cover the beginning and the ending reading to get the monthly, quarterly, annual sales for the current and prior years, for which the BAR right to assess has not yet prescribed. Ano yung right of the BAR to assess? 3 years lang. No? Kaya usually, pag nag-close kayo ng business, 3 years backward yung hinihingi na record sa inyo because all other years prescribed na yun. Okay. Thus, the machine shall be reset to 0. Yun naman ang kagandahan. Kasi pag properly complied yung retirement mo na machine, the machine will be reset to 0. Pag binenta mo, pwedeng kumuha ulit ng permit yung pinagbentahan mo ng machines. Pero kung wala, hindi na magamit yung machine mo, wala nang bibili. Why? Kasi ibabalik sa iyo ng nakabili dahil hindi niya magamit because hindi na bibigyan ng permit ng BAR. Kasi may record yan doon sa BAR. Pag ginamit mo ulit yung machines na yan, with the same machine identification number, hindi yan cleared, hindi yan bibigyan ng permit. No? So for machines that are in different locations or branches, the inspections may be undertaken at a designated place duly agreed upon by the taxpayer and the BAR. Why? Kagaya halimbawa ng SM, dami niyang branches. Or, halimbawa isang establishment. That SM, kasi ang SM hindi yan branch, no? Ibang corporation siya ang nasa iba. Puro lang yan SM, pero it is operated by a different company. So, hindi mo siya makonsider na branch. So, different branches or location. Halimbawa, meron siyang branch all over the Philippines. No? So, gumagamit siya ng cash register machines at the permit of that machine is here in, halimbawa, Quezon City. So, sino titingin doon? Is it the BAR in Quezon City or is it the BAR na located in the branch? No? So, depende daw sa BAR. Usually, yung dati, diniligate na doon sa RDO where the branch is located. No? Pero sometimes, ako, experience ko kasi yan, kami pa mismo pumupunta. Pero yung time ko kasi nasa large taxpayer ako. So kami pa pumupunta kahit saan yan. No? Kahit saan yung branch, pinupuntahan talaga. So the BAR representative are not available to inspect the machine. So applied for withdrawal from use due to repair. No? So ano yun? Shall issue notice to taxpayer that in lieu of inspection of machines, joint sworn statement shall be executed by the taxpayer, user, and the supplier. So, mayroon na sila mga alternatives, no? So, ano yung nakalagay dyan sa joint affidavit nila? The permit to use number, machine identification number, type of machine, machine brand, software name and version number, and then the machine serial number. No? So take note lang na once you buy a cash register machine or point of sale machine, there are compliance requirements na kailangan ninyong gawin. At pinaka-crucial po dyan ay yung sa inyong e-sales reporting, yung total ninyo na sales generated during the month should be reported at the end of the month, no? Dun sa e-sales reporting ng BIR. Okay? Ito naman mga ano na lang to ng BIR, no? Ito, supplier provider or taxpayer users shall submit a consolidated Z-reading, e-journal, back-end reports, and other reports, no? To void, cancel, return, refund, and senior citizen or PWD reports, whichever is applicable from all machines subject to withdrawal from use due to repair. Alam nyo yung mga sales for senior citizens and for persons with disability, meron niyang special books, no, na naka-record. Why? Because the sales to senior citizen and the persons with disability is exempt from the BAR. So may separate talaga siya ng books. No? May mga information required for the establishment to maintain. So all machines subject to withdrawal due to repair, upgrade, and modification for record purposes and data matching with e-sales report shall be attached as a separate annex. So, hindi lang basta-basta yung paggamit ng cash register machine, ha. So, the moment you purchase a cash register machine, alamin nyo rin kung ano yung mga requirements so to avoid penalties. No? So, authorize simultaneous registration of new accredited software or upgrade of software na install ninyo. So, the same machine with application for cancellation of the old software, may permit din yan, no? Sa RDO or sa Large Taxpayers Division. Okay. Alam nyo, napakahirap ang process ng cancellation, ha? Ang daming requirements yan. So, application for cancellation of the old software is approved. Ito naman, software lang yung pinalitan. So, it is mandatory that required sales data extraction as provided shall be accomplished before setting the machine reading to zero. Kaya nga, bawal na kayo lang yung mag-reading. Dapat mayroong revenue officer present during the time na gumawa kayo ng e-reading with your machine. No? Kasi naka-record yan din sa BIR. Okay. Ano naman itong mga SPM or Special Purpose Machine? Ito yung mga nag-i-issue ng supplementary invoicing or receipting. So, ano naman sila dapat? Also registered with the BIR. Halimbawa, may violation ka, you will also be issued subpena dosis tecum. Ano yung subpena dosis tecum? Mandating you to present, no, documents or the machines. Okay. Failure to comply with the subpena dosis tecum, ito na yung may kulong. No? Kasi endorsed to ng BIR sa fiscal, and then the fiscal will declare na yung taxpayer is hindi talaga sumunod, no? May contempt of court. So, ang gagawin dyan, may kulong. No? May kulong yung taxpayer. And then, kung magbe-bail, 4,000 yung bail. No? Naka-piansa lang. And shall warrant the use of the best evidence obtainable. Ito namang, if that is the case, may best evidence obtainable rule naman during the audit. No? Pag wala kang ipakita doon sa cash register machines mo. So total sales generated from all the existing machines of a particular head office or branch shall be divided over the number of existing machines. Kasi sometimes mga terminal lang yung nandoon, no? Kaya nga yun may back office. Okay. So, the existing machines for particular period get the average monthly sales per machine ng head office. Okay. May mga examples dito. It's up to you to read this. No? Basta ang purpose natin dito, ito yung penalty provisions under the train law. Very stiff po ang penalties. And how much is that? 10,000 pesos, whichever is higher. Or 1/10 of 1% of the annual net income. So, kung million yung sales mo, 1/10 of 1% of that, yun ang magiging penalty mo. No? Or 10,000 every day hanggang sa makomply mo siya. Pero ang aggregate number ng number of days is 180. No? So magkano yung 10,000 a day for 180 days? 180, 1,800,000. So, kaya mo pa ba yun? No? Kaya to avoid penalties, comply tayo with the e-sales reporting. No? Ano lang yung pwedeng reason na hindi mo sinunod yung e-sales reporting? Force majeure. No? Siguro pwede na yung na-audit. Force majeure yun eh. Sobrang lakas, no, nasira. So, hindi ka nakagawa ng report. So, pwede yun. Pero yung pandemic, hindi sila inalaw. No? Kasi ang dami during the pandemic na pinadala ng sulat. Why? Kasi pandemic yun, sa loob ka lang naman ng establishment. Wala namang casualties. No? Bakit hindi ka makareport? And, ang purpose nga na hindi tayo lumalabas, gagamitin natin online. At itong e-sales reporting is online. No? So, walang reason talaga ang taxpayer not to comply. Okay? Yan, ang mga purchase or position used or offered to sale installment ng mga upgrade, keeping or maintaining of sales operation devices. Ayan o, ang mahal. 10 million, no? 500,000. But not more than 10 million. Ano to? Yung sinusuppress mo yung sales na nandoon sa machines. No? Sinong gumagawa niyan? Technical persons. So, ang laki ng penalties. Failure to file certain information. Ito na, 1,000 for its failure. So, yan na yung mga penalties. No? So, you can always go back to that. And then, meron tayong mga annexes dito for the reports. No? Although ito, internal na to ng BAR, but of course, alam natin because the taxpayers are the one complying with the requirements of the BAR. So with that, I would like to say thank you po. And what we got today, we discussed about the kaninang umaga, the preparation of the financial statements, and then in the afternoon on the revenue regulations VIDAS 1, no? At saka yung e-sales reporting natin, which is very important. Sa previous namin, hindi na kami umabot dito sa e-sales reporting. I just give the materials, no, for them to read and guide. Pero ngayon, at least tayo, kasi yung bookkeeping natin na iba, computerized accounting system, sinama na natin doon sa morning. No? So, I would like to say thank you po ulit sa mga participants natin and anong wish natin? Sana yung 2022 natin, no, is more, ano ba yun, prosperous than the 2021. No? And sana wala ng pandemic, but kung mayroon mang pandemic, sana mas ready tayo, no? Paghandaan natin so that hindi tayo mabigla na kagaya nung nakaraan, no? Shock talaga tayo doon na lockdown na pala. So with that, I would like to say thank you and for your certificate, tulong-tulong po sila ngayon, papadala na namin sa inyo. So thank you very much and let's call it a day.